By the time we had really left Athens, I think a number of things had happened. I think people began to realise that this was a doable and a scalable project. Team GB's success was helpful. 9 golds, 13 silvers, 13 bronzes, a pretty sensible haul. High-profile government support. Prime Minister had been there for 2 or 3 days. Other cabinet ministers had been through. The IOC were beginning to recognise that we had political underpinning. And what do they mean by political underpinning? Who is the guarantor of last resort? Who is the backstop? The combination of the Mayor of London, who was out there, and the Prime Minister lent a lot of comfort. Actually, more comfort at that stage than most other cities were able to show. We were beginning to develop relationships within the IOC, or particularly amongst those members of my team that had come to this in a way fresh, without an IOC background. Some of my relationships in the IOC went back 20 or 30 years. That wasn't an issue. But for those in the team that needed to actually press their credentials, they needed to understand what it was that made this group of people tick. And the other issue, which was so important to us, were the 20,000 people that left these shores to go and watch the Athens Games, which was an opportunity for us to say, look, it's not just about numbers, although that's important, and it's not just about the passion for sport that there is in the UK. What does that mean in economic terms? Well, it means that if you come to this city, you are not going to be confronted, as they were in Athens, for the first week with empty seats, orange and blue testament to disinterest. That you would be competing, your athletes will be competing, your sponsors, your coaches, your educators will be involved in an organisation that will be performing in front of full, enthusiastic and very noisy groups of people. And the fact that we took more people than any other country to Athens, there were more Brits in Athens than from anywhere else, the single biggest national grouping outside of Greece. And these were the issues that I felt at the time. It's very easy to look back on a campaign and say, well, that was the moment, or that we succeeded or got across the line, or that was the moment that we were derailed. I think you have to look in the totality of a campaign. But Athens really, in a way, was the turning point. And it was also the realisation amongst the other cities that this was a different bid, that these people seemed to be different. They were saying something different. There was a vision that was locked into sport. And for me, the personal moment in all this was this woman's achievement, because she did what only 2 women in the history of track and field have ever done before. She won the 8 and the 1500 metres. Tazankina did it in '76 from the old Soviet Union. Mastakova from an emerging Russia in 1996 did it. I know how hard that is. I tried it 4 times and screwed up on every occasion. And she was, in a way, my vision, because if we could do this in Athens, what would it be like for her to be standing on a rostrum in front of her home crowd with all the engagement that there is from that with young people? And in a way, at that stage, our vision, our narrative was beginning to form. It was that this was a different bid. We weren't locked in a 2-year campaign of tourist numbers and railway lines and hotel occupancy rates, and there's better food and shopping in Paris than in London, or London than New York. This was about a next generation, an instinct for imagination and inspiration. And she created that. And we needed to show that sport ran right the way through this, that I was the only president that had Olympic experience, that my team got up in the morning because they wanted to do this. This wasn't about delivering a construction project. It was about delivering something that had legacy for the next 50 years. And the film that we commissioned at the time was very important in starting to create the international view that this bid had momentum. We had a long way to go, but there was at least momentum. That domestically, people were beginning to get behind it, that we had high-profile third-party endorsement, and that we could subtly start to say things about what we were as a city and as a country, about our creativity, our diversity, the cultural centre, the commercial powerhouse, the ability to deliver on things like discreet policing and all the things that are the subliminal messages in a campaign, but needed to be said. And this was our contribution.